Sigma INFJs are often seen as the lone wolves among the already rare INFJs. While every INFJ possesses deep introspection, empathy, and intuition that defines them, Sigma INFJs live life on an entirely different frequency. They are not just guided by ideals, they embody them in a way that makes them both mysterious and magnetic. Their habits set them apart, not because they are deliberately trying to stand out, but because their internal compass is so fiercely independent that they often end up walking paths no one else dares to tread. One of the most striking habits of Sigma INFJs is their complete detachment from social validation. While most INFJs still crave deep connections and a sense of belonging, Sigma INFJs have transcended that need. They've been misunderstood, rejected, or outgrown so many social dynamics that they no longer depend on external approval to define who they are. They don't just isolate to recharge, they isolate to evolve. Their solitude is not loneliness. It is their forge, the sacred place where they process thoughts, reinvent themselves, and grow sharper in vision. You'll often find them disappearing for days or weeks without explanation, not because they're avoiding the world, but because they're mastering it from the shadows. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Playbook today. The link is in the description of this video. Another habit that makes them stand out is their ability to observe without being seen. Sigma INFJs are masters of invisibility. They move quietly, analyze deeply, and often know far more than they reveal. They have a habit of sitting back and letting others talk, all while absorbing every tone, expression, and unspoken message in the room. They read patterns in people's behavior like a second language. What most would consider a random moment, they perceive as a piece of a larger psychological puzzle. Their silence isn't shyness, it's strategy. They understand that information is power, and by observing without interruption, they often gain insights that others overlook entirely. While typical INFJs have a nurturing and idealistic tendencies that drives them to help others, even at their own expense, Sigma INFJs redefine this instinct. They've learned through pain that not everyone deserves their energy. This transforms their empathy into selective compassion. They still care deeply, but they no longer rescue people who choose to remain victims of their own chaos. They have a habit of setting boundaries so firm that they may appear cold or detached to others. In truth, they've simply grown wise enough to realize that their gift of emotional depth must be preserved for those who genuinely value it. They no longer bleed for those who repeatedly cut them. Sigma INFJs are obsessed with personal evolution. They're constantly dissecting their emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, seeking to understand not just who they are, but who they could become if they push beyond fear and conformity. This makes them intensely self-aware, sometimes to the point of seeming otherworldly. They can sense subtle shifts in their own energy, notice when their intuition is off, and realign themselves with quiet precision. They journal, meditate, study philosophy, psychology, or spirituality, not to impress anyone, but to refine their internal world. They see growth not as an option, but as a moral responsibility. While many INFJs can get trapped in idealistic fantasies, Sigma INFJs bridge the gap between idealism and realism. They don't just dream about change, they act on it. Their visions are not castles in the air. They're blueprints for transformation. They have a habit of creating systems, projects, or movements that reflect their ideals in practical form. You'll find them writing manifestos, building businesses with purpose, or mentoring quietly behind the scenes. They're doers disguised as dreamers. This grounded vision gives them an almost prophetic quality. They see what's possible long before others can, and they often live years ahead of their time. Independence is more than a trait for them. It's a way of life. Sigma INFJs reject rigid hierarchies, social structures, and conventional paths. They have a natural distaste for being told what to do, even by authority figures they respect. Their moral compass and life direction come from within, not from social expectation. You won't find them conforming to trends or seeking group identity. They have a habit of carving their own niche in everything they do, whether it's fashion, work, art, or belief. This independence often makes them appear rebellious, But in truth, they're simply loyal to their authenticity above all else. They can adapt without losing themselves. They can blend into almost any environment, read the energy of the room instantly, and adjust their communication to match the audience, all while remaining true to their core values. This adaptability gives them quiet influence. People find themselves trusting or following them without quite understanding why. They don't shout for attention. Their calm conviction speaks louder than noise. It's not charisma in the loud, flashy sense. It's the power of presence, the kind that commands respect through subtlety and self-assurance. Emotionally, Sigma INFJs process the world in layers. They feel deeply but show selectively. Their emotions run like underground rivers, quiet, powerful, and often hidden from plain view. They've learned that emotional transparency in the wrong hands can be dangerous, so they guard their inner world with precision. Yet when they choose to open up, it's transformative. They speak with such authenticity and depth that people are left speechless. Their words don't just communicate, they awaken. This is why people often describe them as intense or haunting. Their emotional energy lingers even after they've left the room. They don't rush. They move at the pace of purpose, not pressure. While the world races toward instant gratification, they take the long view. They trust divine timing, inner readiness, and organic growth. This patience makes them resilient. They can endure silence, setbacks, and solitude without losing direction. Their detachment from society's timeline allows them to build things that last, whether relationships, careers, or personal transformations. They understand that quality requires stillness, and stillness requires faith. Sigma INFJs are also spiritual minimalists. They may not conform to religion in a traditional sense, but they live deeply spiritual lives. Their habit is to question everything until they find truth that resonates at a soul level. They strip away dogma and illusion, seeking the essence of things. This makes them natural philosophers and mystics. They can merge intellect with intuition, logic with transcendence, and science with spirituality effortlessly. They live from the inside out, guided not by doctrines but by revelation. Their communication style is another reflection of their Sigma nature. They speak in metaphors, symbolism, and layers of meaning that go beyond surface-level understanding. Every conversation with them feels like decoding a hidden message. They rarely engage in small talk because it drains them. They crave depth, meaning, and authenticity. When they speak, they aim to connect soul to soul, not ego to ego. People often walk away from a Sigma INFJ conversation feeling seen in ways they've never been seen before. Sigma INFJs possess a deep, almost sacred relationship with truth that governs everything they do. They don't just value honesty, they embody it, even when it's uncomfortable. This is not the surface-level honesty of telling people what they want to hear. It's the raw, soul-stripping kind that forces self-confrontation. Sigma INFJs cannot tolerate pretense, both in themselves and in others. They would rather stand alone in integrity than belong to a crowd built on illusion. This makes them magnetic to authenticity and allergic to superficiality. When they sense deceit, especially emotional manipulation, they withdraw instantly, not out of fear, but out of respect for their own peace. Their lives are a constant alignment between inner truth and outer action, and this unflinching integrity often isolates them from those who live in self-deception. They have an unconventional relationship with ambition. While most people chase success for recognition or security, Sigma INFJs pursue mastery for transcendence. They don't measure progress by external milestones like wealth or fame, but by inner evolution. How much wiser, freer, and more disciplined they have become. When they set goals, they are rarely motivated by comparison. They are driven by purpose. Their ambitions tend to merge the spiritual with the practical. They want to build things that carry soul. Whether they are writing, designing, mentoring, or creating systems, every pursuit becomes a form of expression for something deeper within. Their success feels different. It's quieter, more enduring, and often unacknowledged until years later, when people finally realize what they were building all along. Their solitude, too, operates on a more intricate level than that of an average INFJ. For Sigma INFJs, solitude is not just for recharging, it's a state of consciousness. They use silence like a tool. In their solitude, they experiment with their own minds, study themselves like scientists, and connect with the spiritual dimensions of existence. They are capable of spending hours in deep reflection, analyzing layers of emotion, thought, and intuition that others never access. What's remarkable is how their solitude is rarely lonely. They have such rich inner worlds that being alone feels like communion, with ideas, with their higher self, and often with the divine. This ability to turn solitude into a spiritual experience is one of the reasons they seem so grounded and self-sufficient. They also have a unique way of handling pain. Where many people try to escape suffering, they transmute it. Pain becomes their teacher, not their prison. They don't deny heartbreak or failure. They study it, feel it, and let it refine them. This alchemical approach to pain gives them an almost supernatural emotional resilience. They've learned that running from pain dulls the soul, but facing it sharpens wisdom. So instead of avoiding discomfort, they lean into it until it reveals the lesson hidden inside. Over time, this makes them unshakable. They stop fearing loss or rejection because they've already learned how to transform darkness into insight. When life breaks them, they rebuild stronger, quieter, and more intentional. They deliberately detach themselves from chaos. Sigma INFJs don't just protect their peace, they curate it. They know exactly which people, environments, and energies feed or drain them. Their boundaries are not defensive walls, but sacred filters. You'll notice that they rarely react to provocation or drama. They prefer disengagement to confrontation when the energy feels unworthy of their attention. This doesn't make them passive, it makes them strategic. They understand that reacting gives chaos power, and they have no desire to waste their emotional energy on things that won't matter in a month. Their silence is often mistaken for weakness, but it's actually control, an artful way of choosing battles that align with their higher purpose. In relationships, Sigma INFJs love differently. They don't fall easily, but when they do, it's profound. However, unlike typical INFJs who can become overly idealistic or self-sacrificial in love, Sigma INFJs love with awareness. They can give deeply while maintaining individuality. They don't merge their identity with another person's. They share it selectively. Their love is both tender and fierce, spiritual yet grounded. They want connection that awakens the soul, not just companionship that fills the silence. They are drawn to partners who challenge their intellect, respect their solitude, and match their emotional intelligence. But once disrespected or betrayed, they vanish completely. No closure, no explanation, just silence that speaks volumes. For them, loyalty is sacred, and betrayal is the one thing they never recover from emotionally, even if they appear composed on the outside. They can function effectively in structured systems, corporate environments, social organizations, or academic circles, yet they remain detached from them internally. They play the game without being owned by it. They understand the rules, use them when beneficial, and quietly break them when necessary. This makes them appear as paradoxes, insiders who think like outsiders. Their minds are both visionary and tactical. They can navigate power structures without being corrupted by them, because their allegiance is always to their principles, not their position. They have a subtle yet profound form of intuition that goes beyond prediction. It borders on spiritual discernment. While typical INFJs can sense emotional undercurrents, Sigma INFJs can see patterns unfolding before they happen. It's as though their subconscious constantly runs simulations, warning them about people's true motives or the unseen consequences of a decision. This intuition often feels prophetic. They trust it deeply, and it rarely fails them. It's not magic. It's their hyper-awareness, their ability to read microsignals, tones, silences, and energies that most people ignore. This foresight allows them to move through life like chess masters, making quiet but deliberate moves that others only understand in hindsight. They are not driven by constant busyness, but by momentum. They work in waves, intense bursts of creativity, followed by deep stillness. During those still periods, it may seem as though they're doing nothing, but their subconscious is at work, connecting dots and refining visions. When their next wave hits, they execute with startling precision and speed. This cyclical rhythm allows them to maintain depth without burning out, and it's one of the reasons they often produce work that feels timeless and inspired. They have a deep sense of purpose that extends beyond themselves. Sigma INFJs are not content with personal happiness alone. They need to contribute. Their mission often involves helping others awaken to truth, whether through teaching, creating, writing, or leading. But they don't seek to control or preach. They influence through example. They live in such alignment that others feel inspired to question their own lives. This subtle mentorship is their quiet revolution. They are change makers who operate from the shadows, influencing hearts and minds without needing applause. They don't cling to people, places, or seasons that have outlived their purpose. Detachment for them isn't coldness, it's trust. They believe that everything that leaves their life creates space for something higher. This ability to release without resentment keeps them spiritually light and emotionally free. While others exhaust themselves holding on, Sigma INFJs evolve. They don't fear endings. They see them as necessary transitions in the greater story of becoming. Sigma INFJs live life as a constant experiment. They are not afraid to reinvent themselves repeatedly. To them, identity is fluid, not fixed. They see every version of themselves as a prototype for the next evolution. While most people fear change because it means stepping into the unknown, Sigma INFJs crave it. They find stagnation suffocating. You'll often find them shedding old versions of themselves quietly, leaving behind careers, social circles, and belief systems that no longer align with their inner truth. They have no emotional attachment to who they used to be, because they understand that every stage of growth requires death of the old self. This habit of continuous reinvention gives them a mysterious quality. People who knew them once often feel they've met an entirely different person years later. It's not pretense, it's transformation. They're self-taught polymaths. They don't just read books or take courses, they absorb knowledge in unconventional ways. Their curiosity is limitless and multidimensional. They can dive into psychology, philosophy, art, technology, spirituality, and sociology all in one sitting, connecting patterns across disciplines that most would never associate. What sets them apart is how they internalize knowledge not to sound intelligent, but to live intelligently. They practice what they learn in their private lives long before they ever speak about it publicly. They use information to refine their understanding of reality and to strengthen their intuition. For them, wisdom is not accumulation, it's integration. They can detach from their own emotions when necessary. Though deeply feeling by nature, they can switch into analytical mode when a situation demands clarity. They can step outside their own emotional storm and observe it as if it belonged to someone else. This emotional objectivity allows them to make decisions that are both empathetic and rational. It's what makes them excellent strategists and advisors. They can sense the emotional truth of a moment without being consumed by it. This habit gives them a balance few INFJs achieve, a mastery over emotion that transforms sensitivity into power instead of weakness. While many INFJs feel fulfilled when they are appreciated or recognized for their contributions, Sigma INFJs don't need acknowledgement to validate their purpose. They are content to operate behind the curtain, influencing outcomes without drawing attention. They don't care who gets the credit, as long as the mission succeeds. This quiet influence often leads people to underestimate them, unaware that their subtle guidance has shaped relationships or decisions. They are the kind of people who change the course of other people's lives without ever being noticed, and they prefer it that way.